All right, everybody, welcome back to another OSHA Quick Take with Conn, Maciel, Carey. I am not Scott Cuthbert. I am the other co-founder of Safepedia, Jamie Young, substituting in. So really a great pleasure to be here. Today, we're here to highlight the unique aspects of state OSHA plans. And with us, we've got Megan and Tony. And just before we get started, really want to remind you to, in the link below, click on, there's a webinar, live webinar coming up on September 19th at 1 p.m. Eastern, where they're doing the live show to really dive into all the details. So with that, I'll let Megan and Tony introduce themselves. And with that, take it away, guys.
Thanks so much for having us, Jamie. I'm Megan Shaked. I'm a partner at Conn, Maciel, Carey out in California and do quite a bit of work for our clients the West Coast state OSHA plans. I'm joined today by my colleague Tony, who will introduce himself, and then we'll give you a little bit of an overview of what to expect from the webinar, so you know why you might want to join.
Great. Thanks, Megan. Thank you, Jamie. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Tony Casaletta. I'm a senior counsel with Conn, Maciel, Carey. I'm based out of the Midwest office in the Detroit metro area, one of our newer offices here with Conn, Maciel, Carey. A little bit of a unique background about myself is I am former OSHA compliance with Michigan OSHA. I was with Michigan OSHA for 18 years as a compliance officer, specifically an industrial hygienist. My bachelor's and master's degree are both in industrial hygiene. So I ended up becoming an attorney about 6 years ago. And I'm happy to be here and to provide you guys with some specific insights onto some of the Midwestern and East Coast states and some of the unique aspects that they're bringing to the table on this.
So for the webinar on September 19th, we started this webinar last year, and it was we think it was a great success and really interesting for folks who may be more familiar with federal OSHA and maybe more comfortable in federal OSHA states. But there are 22 states that have OSHA-approved state plan states. And while those plans have to be at least as effective as federal OSHA, they can have unique aspects, both in terms of the regulations that exist in those states and also things like penalty structures and even, more informally, how they run inspections and some unique aspects of, procedural requirements that may exist for appeals, for example. So we would like you to join for a little journey from the different regions in the United States so we can highlight kind of a high-level overview of some of the unique aspects of the state plan states for a couple of reasons. One, just to remind you that they exist and help you identify when it might be necessary to get some more information, get somebody who's more familiar with that state OSH plan to assist with a compliance question or an investigation or a response to a notice of alleged hazard letter or even a full inspection and appeal. So I'll pass it to Tony to give just a few highlights of some of the things that we'll discuss, kind of moving from the East Coast over to the West Coast. And we hope that you're able to join. And like Jamie mentioned, you can register for the live webinar, but even if you aren't able to make it for the live presentation, the registration is the best way to get the full copy of the webinar recording as well as the slides. We make those available within a week after the presentation, and registering is the quickest and easiest way to get access to the information, even if you're not able to join us on the call.
Awesome. Click the link in the description, guys. That's where it's at.
Great. Thanks, Megan. Just to kind of follow up on that too, I'm going to kind of move inside out. I think I was going to go from East Coast to West Coast, but I think I'm going to start from the Midwest and kind of move outwards here. So as Megan had mentioned, most states have similar identical standards and appeal procedures similar to federal OSHA. However, there are always a few of those states that do happen to stand out. And during this webinar, what we will do is we'll discuss some of those unique states that happen to have rules or requirements that employers really do need to be aware of when doing business in those states, handling compliance inspections, or proceeding through the citation appeals process. For example, Minnesota. I have a few clients that are in Minnesota, and when handling the first appeal, getting into the informal appeal process or the informal conference with Minnesota OSHA, employers are required to have their notice of contest notarized, which is a little bit different than what you would typically see in some of these other state plan states as well as federal OSHA. Michigan OSHA, where I'm from, has a two-part appeal process that employers will need to navigate before they actually get to a formal hearing in front of an administrative law judge. In Washington state, for example, requires employers to initiate abatement action on citations that are under appeal, while most other state plan states and federal OSHA put a stay in that abatement until the appeal becomes a final order of the board. Some of the other developments that we're seeing in some of the state plan states, going back to Minnesota, Minnesota OSHA has recently developed and implemented a requirement for employers operating healthcare facilities, warehouse distribution centers, and meatpacking or poultry processing sites to develop and implement an ergonomics program, which is quite significant and something that we haven't seen in any of the other state plan states, and obviously not in federal OSHA. States that operate their own occupational safety and health plans are required to adopt maximum penalty levels that are at least as effective as federal OSHA's. Several states are still in the process of getting caught up with federal OSHA's penalty structures. We're seeing a few states that are in the process of getting those implemented. Again, Michigan, where I'm from, is one of those states that actually have legislation in place to adopt the federal penalty structure. However, we're still waiting to kind of see how that pans out. So stay tuned for that. And then finally, as my colleague Megan said, compliance can be tricky in some of these state plan states. Understanding these nuanced rules, state emphasis programs, and quirky appeal process can be problematic for some employers used to working in federal OSHA jurisdiction states or expanding from one state plan to another. Fortunately, we have experience in almost all the states and are quite familiar with the nuanced programs. Before you start working these state plan states, it's a good idea to research the rules, state emphasis programs, and the appeals process in the event OSHA stops by for a visit. Of course, you can always reach out to us for assistance.
Thanks, Tony. And we'll round out the program, kind of moving to the West Coast, just as another example of some of the things we'll cover. We can't have a state OSH plan webinar without mentioning Washington and California, some of the most aggressive and active state plan states, although they're by no means the only ones. We have active investigators, active inspectors throughout the country. But we did want to highlight some unique aspects of Washington and California because they are active on the rulemaking. Just as an example, Washington has a new requirement tied to safety requirements in warehouse distribution contexts where there are quotas in place. And California, never to be outdone on the rulemaking front, is busy not only adopting regulations that have already been in existence at the federal level to ensure that they remain at least as effective as federal OSHA, but they're also active with rulemaking. Just as an example, for those of you who may be familiar with the new labor code requirement in California to have a specific workplace violence prevention plan, Cal OSHA is now incorporating that directly into the Cal OSHA regulations. And they're also working on a rulemaking to create a new category of classification of citations known as egregious, which would be a step up from willful in California, as well as the concept of an enterprise-wide citation, which would could increase not only the number of citations issued if there was evidence of statewide violations, but would also increase the penalties as well. So there's just some of the things that we'll cover during the webinar, and we hope you're able to join.
Awesome. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Megan. So just want to reiterate, lots of compliance, lots to know. Conn, Maciel, Carey, they are here to help. Don't miss the webinar, Thursday, September 19th, 1 p.m. Eastern. That's the live show, Unique Aspects of State OSH Plans. It is being recorded, so register if you can't make it to the live show, they'll send you the recording right to your email and a copy of the slides about a week after. And yeah, lots to know, lots to figure out. So thank you, Conn, Maciel, Carey. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Megan. And with that, we'll see you on the next OSHA Quick Take.
Thank you, Jamie.